to be working with you all. We've been working with the match team for a year or so now, and we're excited to get to this phase of the project. So hello again. My name is Sojourner. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a project strategist and amalgamator, meaning I'm really good at putting a bunch of random things together and making sense out of them at Ubuntu. I've been at Ubuntu since June 2020, and it's been a joy to work with like the match team and the CAT, and now see kind of this Just Recovery project all come together to this point. And I'll pass it to Radea.
Happy 414 Day. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so that's what we celebrating here. I'm a researcher, strategist, and evaluator at Ubuntu Research and Evaluation. My pronouns are Hershey, and it's good to see all y'all in this place, in this space.
Yeah, and we'll be your evaluators through this process for the duration that you all be doing these projects. And yes, happy 414 Day. Friday always reminds us that we are all Milwaukee made, at least most of us on the Ubuntu team. And if you're not familiar with Ubuntu, we are based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, though we are now a 100% remote team. So I'm currently in Portland, but we're kind of all over the Midwest and other areas at any given point. And we're a learning organization powered by a collective of unapologetic Black women, femmes, and non-binary people working as transdisciplinary strategists committed to resistance against anti-Blackness and the intellectual and political defense of all Black people through education, facilitation, and evaluation, which is what you all are a part of. Our existence as an organization means we antagonize anti-Black, anti-Indigenous, anti-queer, anti-femme, anti-disability, and an anti-fat world. And that's like the short version of our spiel, but we wanted to kind of uplift all of that in this space. And we want to go over just a few things that we'll be talking about today before we kind of get to know you all. So we're going over the basics of storytelling evaluation, which if you're like, what is that? We have all the information on what it is. It's not the most traditional form of evaluation if you have done evaluations in the past, but it's the one that we personally love to do the most and love to do it with community members who are doing projects such as yours. And we'll also talk about how we use it for you all in particular and what it looks like and how to get that process started. But before we begin and get into kind of evaluation, like from the storytelling angle, we always like to know kind of your experience with evaluation, especially as community members. Evaluation and research, we know, does not have the best relationship when it comes to being in community. So I put the chat box, but if you want to unmute and say your name, your pronouns, and the organization you're a part of and answer the questions, you can do that as well, whatever you're comfortable with. You can answer in one word. How do you feel about the evaluation process? And then what kinds of evaluations are you familiar with in your experience?
Well, I'll go first. Hi, I'm Aaliyah. I'm with Exfabula. How do I feel about the program evaluation process? I guess the best word I have for that is ugh, like UGH. It's so difficult to measure such impact in quantitative numbers often, and it can become very difficult to really put people in a box that way and have to separate their identities into check boxes in order to meet an evaluation process is very difficult. That was more than one word, but that was a thing. Also, my pronouns are she, they.
Thanks, Aaliyah. I see Megan said repetitive, like different funders have very different requirements for evaluation. And Stephanie said mostly familiar with written grant reports. So my word is frustrating and challenging. AU stressful, yeah. Megan, I'm familiar with only written reports that are submitted and not responded to, never conversations or dialogue. Matthew said intimidated, becoming more familiar with evaluation as a whole, but I'm used to evaluations done in a public health context. Omar said evolving. Jasmia, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Let me know. Said, oh, I lost it. Looking to experts, keep my hands out of it. Peggy, also mostly familiar with written, and it's tedious. I feel like it's a personality test where they ask the same question but in different ways. Kiana said writing and not seen. Aaliyah said, to demonstrate impact in written evaluation, we often utilize narrative and testimonials, plus everything Megan said. Okay. Anybody else want to share? And it sounds like a lot of y'all actually are familiar with more of the quantitative, like the survey type of evaluation. I see a few head nods, like that's what people are normally familiar with. Cool. Well, if you do have any other thoughts on evaluation, feel free to put them in the chat. We'd be happy to hear them. And you all actually said a lot of the assumptions about evaluation, which is on brand for what we normally hear. Ubuntu, we do primarily qualitative evaluation. So we do quantitative, and Radea, I always joke, to be like working at like the NIH or something like that, because she's really good at the quantitative stuff as well. But we rely heavily on the qualitative. And so some of the common assumptions and experiences really with evaluation that's only used to measure the impact of a program, which is kind of what this one is, but you can also use it to, test like how a pilot program is doing, have more of a feedback type of evaluation as well. There's like youth evaluation. There's so many other different types that people could use. It's not only about statistics and numbers. As we said, we are qualitative, so we talk to people and do a lot of focus groups and interviews. Focus group interviews, workshops like this. So it's not only about doing pre and post program surveys, especially with the Just Recovery Project. There's no way we can do a pre and post survey with pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Like this doesn't make any sense. So we really like to lean into the storytelling for projects like this. And so we want to talk about our qualitative evaluation strategy so that you all are aware of what we do and what you may be a part of as you are recipients of the Just Recovery grants. And so here are 4 strategies that we use often for our qualitative work. So observations is what we did a lot in the first phase of this project with the match team and the community action team, just watching people's behaviors, actions, conversations, interpersonal interactions, and also how like organizations and communities work even in these kinds of spaces. We've also done focus groups in the past, so I'm sure many of you have been a part of those, just asking questions for about 60 to 90 minutes. I'm also doing, I should say, individual interviews for number 3. So asking those open-ended questions one-on-one, and then doing facilitated workshops like this with you all, and also a lot of what we'll be doing with you all for the storytelling aspects. And so we want to talk about strategies of storytelling evaluation so that we can finally put, a face to what we've been discussing. And so if you look at what storytelling evaluation is defined as, you'll find roughly this. It's just a data collection strategy for participants to use their own words and experiences to reflect on their participation in a program or an organization. You all mentioned when you were talking about your experience with evaluation that a lot of it is like whatever the funders tell you, is kind of a one-way street. There's no really a lot of reciprocity. And so we're hoping that this process, you all do feel more reciprocity, and like you can openly say, how it's been working on your community projects and what that's looked like for you. And one of the options that you'll have for this process is called Photo Voice. So it empowers people from quote unquote marginalized, or the global majority, essentially, groups to capture and record their life experiences through community and community through photography and storytelling. So I'd like to say that this is kind of, if you were to take social media, like a TikTok vlog, that's kind of what Photo Voice could look like in a more like social media era, just like narrating your life. If you're on Instagram, like what would it be like if people could put audio behind their photos, even though they say it's not a photo sharing app anymore? What would that look like? Just narrating your process or an experience is essentially what Photo Voice is. It's just, this is the more evaluation term to describe it. So the task is normally to document, reflect upon, and communicate a personal story or issue of concern through photos and narration. That can be a program, that could be like a day in your life, because that is a narrative, that is a story. Everyone has a story. So what would it look like to narrate that as and make that part of an evaluation to understand the impact of what you're doing? And so the data is connecting how a participant understands themselves and their pictures and words in relation to what a program tells us they want to do. So if they're like, Ubuntu, we want to have this impact, but we can't tell you that because we need to know what's actually going on, we would use Photo Voice as a way to say, hey, these are the actual experiences of your youth, of the people that you serve, and how they see themselves in relation to the services you offer. So that's one example, and we'll have a whole case study on what this has looked like for us in real time as well. And if there are any questions you all have in the chat, I do have a portion like after this, but if at any point something comes up, feel free to pop it in there and we'll come back to it. The second strategy that you'll have the option to do is journey mapping. This was one that we did at Ubuntu about our own lives, but journey mapping is an art-based storytelling method. It provides a way for you to meaningfully capture key moments in your life, but through like a timeline. So unlike Photo Voice, photos aren't necessarily required for journey mapping. They can be, but it's more about putting those concrete experiences on a timeline to see a sequence of events. And when we think about this project in the pandemic and how this project came out, there's probably a lot of sequence of events that led you to submit the proposal you did and to get to this point of like, okay, now we're going to do this community project. So we felt like this one is also a really good strategy to offer to you all, depending upon your preference. So the task is to outline, again, those certain set of experiences that led your organization, you, however you want to look at it, even collectively, to this moment. And depending upon when you decide to do your journey map, that may vary, and we'll get to that later. But we want to know, like, what was the process? Like, how did you all get here? We know what happened when you submitted the proposal, but we don't know the context fully. And so we think journey mapping is a great way to get that more holistic approach, aside from like, hey, here's a proposal, here's what we want to do. No, these are actually the experiences that got you there. And so when people ask us what's the data, that context is data. We look at everything being data, all the conversations, all those experiences, and not just the number of people who attended a community event. We want to know about all of the extra stuff that led them there and got them there as well. And this is also a great way to show, what has been most impactful for you, also any areas of growth for like us as evaluators or as like with the match team and being a part of this project too. Your journey outlines, okay, maybe we should have done this at this moment due to all of these contexts that we didn't know was occurring, but was clearly important to the community. And so these two approaches are really common for in the evaluation space as like centering equity and evaluation, because one, with Photo Voice, you have control of how your images are used and perceived. A lot of the times, I always use the example of you see a lot of like protest photos of Black and brown people in particular, but the people who get famous off of those are often like the white photographers, right? And so people don't have that consent, that transparency to tell like, yes, you took the photo in that moment, but that was one moment in again, like the journey, a whole line of events that kind of got you there. And so photo voice and journey mapping both allow for us as evaluators to understand the fuller context aside again from what you all submitted in the proposals, and to really figure out what was that impact aside again from just the numbers. And as community members and leaders, your perspective and experience is at the forefront. To an extent, it's not guided by the funders, but we all know funders like to do evaluation. So it's kind of like we're trying to figure out more community-based approaches for evaluation. And this is what, we want to offer. And so it also allows organizations to connect how certain circumstances and experiences kind of led you to create this project, and also understand and see the impact of it. So is it 100% equitable all the time? No, because evaluation is not inherently in how it's designed. But with storytelling, we hope we're able to get a holistic approach for a kind of what you all want to do or what you are currently doing in the community. So I'm going to pause right there. Are there any initial questions before we get into like the case study, so you all can see how this has been in practice for us? Hi, you. I see you. I can't hear you though. Can anybody else hear? I can't hear. Hey, you, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Hey, you, we still can't hear you. I'm sorry, whatever you're saying sounds really dope and I want to hear it, but I see your hands moving, I see you by the screen, but I cannot hear you. No, dang it. And I feel like,
all right.
oh, there you are, there you are, there you are.
I'm there. Oh, okay. I just wanted to, and I'm sure maybe it's gonna be part of everything that is coming, but that's something that came to my mind, so I want to put it out there just in case. Or when it comes to like, maybe talk more about it. It's about when working with young people, and when they are the ones documented, or we are documenting like pictures and all that, about how you have, like, how do you manage consent and family consent and all these issues around images, right? And all that with young people. So that's the only thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely talk about that in this case study because it has come up a lot. But yeah, we always ask, even for like our presentations, we ask for like consent to use photos. We do block some people out, which you'll see in a second, just because they are young people. But yeah, we always make sure that the organization we work with have the consent. Like one, we have it as evaluators, we have it written. Like when we have the storytelling, we actually do the trainings with you all on these different strategies. Like we have a whole consent form that we read to you all and send out to you all, even like as adults. And so we do build that into our evaluation process. And normally, historically, the organizations we work with have also had their own form of consent as well, that we also that they build into their own. So it hasn't been an issue thus far, but we never say never, because you never know what happens. But we do have that built in, and we can talk more about it too. I think that was the only question I saw. So kind of going in, that's a great lead in actually into the case study we have, and how we as Ubuntu have used storytelling evaluation with a past client. So just outlining what our task was very similar to you all. This program was looking at this one was for a college program that offered full ride tuition for Black and Brown students to go to college. We were asked to better understand like their college journey, what resources, connections, and support their program provided that was helpful. So using storytelling as a way to reflect on other ways they could have been supported or what they liked about the program. And so the key components we held in that space were dignity, support, belonging, connection, and success. So we had a very similar process with you all doing a kickoff, doing trainings on journey mapping and photo voice, and using Padlet and Zoom and also Canva to help them articulate their stories. And so we did block out their faces and some of any identifying information for this, but these were the journey maps we got, and journey maps look a lot differently. These were made in Canva, if you're familiar with it. The one I showed you previously was made in Padlet. And again, we looked at how this program shaped their college experiences, what were they able to do because they didn't have to worry about finances for tuition in college. And so again, it gave the description of how someone changes on their college journey, the impact of not having that financial burden, and also where that other areas where their burdens could have been alleviated, and then also understanding the program's intentionality behind the resources that they did provide, and also understanding the impact of said resources. Another example was photo voice. So the top one's actually our example from a former coworker, Sierra, but the bottom one is what the youth did. So we blocked out their faces and everything, but they created on Padlet, and we did give them some guiding questions just to help them get started, to figure out how to articulate their story, but also said they're open to adding anything that we did not cover in our like guiding questions. And so then at the top of the screen, this person ended up narrating it on Zoom for us. So they made the Padlet, they narrated it, recorded it, and then sent it back to us after they did the photo voice training. And so again, understanding the connection between the photo they chose and how they describe it, to understand the impact of the opportunity that they had to go to college and what that looks like for them. And so now that that project is completed, they're using the storytelling evaluation to communicate the impact to their funders, but also to alumni, and using it to kind of bridge more connection between alumni of their program. So that was one of the things that the students wanted to see. They had a lot of strong quantitative measures, but this qualitative evaluation kind of filled that void. And so now they're also streamlining it into their larger evaluation strategy, just to understand their learnings, which a lot of you all mentioned. I think Aaliyah said in particular, just to understand more of the impact about what they're doing and how they're doing it aside from just numbers. So I'll do another pause for questions, comments, concerns, anything at this point. Okay. Radea, did you want to add anything to what I already said?
No, I was actually just going to say I admire how you're flowing through this. I had a question. I had a question for everyone here. Which one do you think you'll prefer? Someone that had this for your project. Which one do you think is most applicable, rather?
This is Aaliyah with the Fabula. I like both options a lot. I like the idea of the photo mapping or photo voice, because it really gives autonomy to the folks participating. And I think that demonstrates impact in a way that testimonials don't quite capture.
This is Matthew from Public Allies, Wisconsin. I like sort of echo Lee, I love both of them. I think for our specific project, the journey mapping is exciting to me, just to see the growth area for some of the new skill building that is possible through the project that we're doing. So I'd just be really excited to see the journey maps.
Mhm. See, Omar said photo voice. Using both, Stephanie said using both for different reasons and contexts. Both are very fitting from Tia. Jasmine said, how do you build power and buy-in when we know there's a preference for quantitative measures? Ah, yes. Friday, do you want to answer that first or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first. It's the, I guess I'm usually not the wordsmith on the team, and I'm very live and direct, so my words might not be all the way here. However, it is definitely room to be explicit with the funders and the stakeholders and stating the validity of the people who are actually there, right? Like you lose the context, the voice, and sometimes the validity when you only reported numbers, right? But when you have a person to validate the number, to validate the experience, to validate the impact, then that's like extra data and extra validity to the program, the activity, whatever was funded. So I'll just encourage this strategy more, right? Y'all have the power to make it valid, to make it worthwhile, to make it a best practice because y'all use it more, right? So the more the people who apply for the grants and then report like this, the more it is valid and perceived as a preferred measure.
Yeah, something we run up against a lot, because we also know how like foundations and like higher education likes numbers, and so it is a push. It's not easy sometimes, and to be honest, sometimes I think people are like, we'll try it and see, and they really just see if we can actually do it. So I think part of it's kind of a test to see what information we get out. But even if somebody is a little hesitant in the beginning, by the end, we found that they learned more about their project or their program than they even thought, and they got different type of data. And I think that's kind of what we like to reiterate, that it's not that quantitative data is bad, but quantitative only data gives you one perspective of like people's experiences in evaluation. And so we try to have that kind of, people like to talk about narrative change, but we kind of have to lean on that in evaluation too, and understanding that you get a different narrative when you ask different questions, which seems like but it's just not with the way that we value like statistics and numbers. So it is a push. It is a hard fight sometimes, but we enjoy it. So we try. I see Aaliyah said that agree, mapping sounds more applicable to reflecting on why the org made decisions we made. Photo voice can lend itself to folks being in service. Yeah. Okay, we like to see the variety. And feel free to keep talking in the chat. So just looking at next steps and kind of outlining what we'll be doing. So these slides and this presentation, we're in the process of creating a landing page for you all. So a link where you can access all of this information, because we know emails, we get a lot of them. So we're trying to make sure we have all of that set up for you all, and we'll send that out after the next session next week. So it'll have this presentation on there, as well as the recordings from this workshop and the one next week will be also uploaded. And then we wanted to kind of ask you all and offer two different options for doing our data collection. We were going to like record ourselves going through how to create one of these, like a journey map or photo voice in Canva and Padlet, and also wanted to upload those to the landing page. However, we also like to relieve any burden if you all like have a lot going on, which most people in community do. However, because of the depth of the two strategies, we'll also hold monthly like sessions for you all to come to the like a journey mapping or photo voice training with Radea and myself. So we're gonna offer those between now and July-ish, August-ish, depending on when your projects are being done or when like the bulk of the work will being done. Not saying that you may have all of the answers by the time you register for one of your trainings, but you'll know how to do it and we're able to articulate it so that we can understand the impact up until that point where you have done the training. So you don't have to wait all the way until the end to do it. If you want to register for one of them in June because the bulk of the work will be done, or you want to just do it in that time frame because it works best for your schedule, we'll do that. So we'll have two different options, and we'll send out, and the landing page will have all of the links to all of those dates too. So be sure to bookmark that one email when we send it out. Or give it to the match team to send out, so that you know which one you can attend. And you don't have to come to both. For your project, you pick one or the other. You do not have, if you feel inclined to do both, I'm not going to stop you because we love data. But you do not have to do both of them. You can do the journey mapping or the photo voice and then come to the training for that respective strategy. Which again will be with me and Radea. So are there any questions about next steps that you all have for us? To the chat. I don't see anybody unmuting. Radea, did I forget anything? Or Megan?
No,
Yeah, can I actually,
perspective.
No, go ahead, Megan.
oh,
Sorry.
sorry. Just a question then. Since some programs may have different numbers of participants, is the idea to try to engage all of them or a selection? The only thing I'm wondering is, what's the time commitment for a participant? Like from an equity perspective, we always want to be thoughtful about like the folks we're working with. What are we asking them to do? Are they getting, you know, is there something in it for them? Are they getting paid for their time if we as an organization are asking them to do something? So I guess I'm just wondering, like, what kind of time commitment is it for a person to participate in the measurement?
So you're asking like for your participants?
Well, maybe that's something I misunderstood. Who
Yeah.
specifically is doing the journey mapping? Is it people from, like at Xfabula? It could be us staff, it could be our storytelling coaches, or it could be the people that are coming to the Brave Space workshops that we're doing. Maybe you could clarify who is participating in this? Maybe I misunderstood that.
Got you. From my understanding, it was the organization, like that was going to be a choice made up like organizations, but actually
Oh, okay.
Lola, did you all have a particular thing
Yeah, I'm
in
here.
mind?
I think the reality is that the projects that are funded are all so different. And so there's not really a prescriptive way to do this. I think the way we're approaching this is that you guys as funded organizations would be kind of driving how your evaluation approach works. That being said, you may recognize that the nature of your work, that you need to pull in some other participants to better tell this story. And so I think that that's, it's one of those times where I'm saying a bunch to just tell you, like, it depends, which I apologize for, but I think that that really is the reality, is that we're looking towards you, Ex Fabula, owning this, and we want to be fluid enough for you to do this in the way that feels most right.
And so maybe even in our one-on-one meetings with Match, we can discuss that further then, it sounds
We
like. 'Cause it
can,
will
and
be.
think,
Okay.
yeah, think through what the options are, because a lot of this is about your kind of organizational journey in doing this work, but we also recognize the perspective of the folks that are participating or leading may be necessary, to really telling that story. And if that's the case, then we can kind of talk through how to weave that in.
Mhm.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Megan, if you all decide like you want like a participant to come, they could come to the session with us so that they can just do it. The session will be like an hour max. They can do it with us, like a journey mapping training or a photo voice training, so that it doesn't like they have to do multiple things outside of it. They can just come to that one session, chat with us, or however you want to do it as well. Thank you for that question.
Nope. Thanks for the clarification. And yeah, isn't it true that everything's always contextual? So I'm actually delighted to hear that sort of response.
Yeah, because the other part is that Just Recovery is technically kind of like a pilot. Like this is a very new process for all of us. So we're just like hoping like and like this is all gonna work out. But we want to kind of keep it a little more flexible because evaluation is normally very rigid and has not the most reasonable timelines. So we wanted to give as much space as possible. Are there any other questions? I don't see. Ade, were you going to say something beforehand?
No, I was just done eating, so I came on camera.
Okay. We're glad you like it, Aaliyah. We like storytelling too. So makes sense. Yeah, I'm all for giving people back their time. So if there aren't any more questions, we can do just like a checkout, just kind of get a temperature check of how you all are feeling about this process, just because it is a newer way or a different way to do evaluation. So if you want to unmute or share in the chat how you're feeling. And as always, if you have any other questions, feel free to contact us too. But just want to do like a temperature check after hearing our big spiel.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
So we're really excited here about these, two models for storytelling evaluation. We are thinking that we're going to be attending both sessions because of, the work that we're doing. We see the journey implemented, more with like practitioners and the journey of like learning and unlearning and all that. And also with youth who are learning maybe the class on restorative justice, but the club and more of like the, the piece where they are actually engaging in the service and all that, or maybe at the end they could do like youth could choose. We also think that that would be great if they would like to choose. So we're gonna be doing both, and we're really excited about this. So thank you.
Thank you. We're excited to hear that. I see some stuff in the chat. Makes evaluation less daunting and more responsive. So we like to hear. Thank you, Tia. Well, again, if you have any other questions or want to reach out, you can reach out to the match team and they can find me, or you can email us. And if there are any questions that arise during the process, again, look for like an updated full landing page roughly by the end of the month. That'll have even the instructional videos if you want that extra support. But we will also be sending out dates for those trainings on journey mapping and photo voice, so that you all have those on your calendars and you can pick whichever one between May and July-ish that works best for you to attend and come do your map with us, which again is based on your project timeline. So just let us know. We'll send you the updates and we'll be in touch with the match team as well. Is there anything else that Match or Radea wants to add before I tell everybody to go enjoy the rest of their day?
No, happy 414 day.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for that, Sojourner. That was really awesome.
Radea, you can stop recording.
Now that you got your props.